Gig Gab, episode 428 for Monday, May 6th, International No Diet Day 2024. Greetings, folks, and welcome to Gig Gab, the show by, for, and about working musicians here as usual in Durham, New Hampshire, where the lightning is striking and hopefully the recording remains intact. I'm Dave Hamilton, and back with us today as my guest co-host, Mike Schulte from Confused Breakfast Pork Tornadoes. Mike, it's good to see you again, man.
It's a terrible day for no diet day. I mean, because yesterday being Cinco de Mayo, I had about 47 tacos, and then I had about 23 margaritas. And so this does not seem like a day to not have a diet. Today seems like a day to be like, dude, you messed up last night. You need to have a diet. You made poor choices.
You know, it's like it's just an extension of bad decision day. That's all it is. Okay. You're just getting a pass on it. It's like you're gonna have to face the music at some point, right? But that can be tomorrow.
But today's not the day to face the music. Tomorrow, the 7th, is diet day. You have to have a diet. You just need to eat responsibly. It's not even about a diet. You just got to kind of get off this bender that you've been on. It's really what it is. There are days like this where I was a vegetarian for like 10 years, vegan for like 5, and there are certain days where I'm like, it's time to go back to that. I think we need to restart that in our life.
It's a good thing to be aware of. We were, Lisa, especially before we moved to Texas, was eating vegetarian almost all the time. For a while she had, and when we were together, obviously we would eat, I would eat vegetarian with her. And then we moved to Texas. And she was like, actually before we even moved there, she was like, we were there like finding a house or whatever, to rent. Yep. And one night, after a day of like slogging through and finding places and not finding places and getting denied and this, that, and the other, all the crap that you go through when you're like in your early 20s and nobody wants to trust you. She's like, we should go get barbecue. And I'm like, that has meat in it.
That's what barbecue means?
That's what that means? And she's like, yeah, I want a rack of ribs. I'm like, also the meat, though? It's mostly other than the bone that you're not going to eat. Like, it's just the meat. She's like, yeah, I haven't had ribs in a long time. It's like, because you're vegetarian? But anyway, we did, and it was delicious.
Yeah. It's probably hard to be vegetarian in a place like Texas. Kind of like what ultimately drove me back from the vegan vegetarian lifestyle was that I realized I was actually eating worse by trying to be vegetarian because you're in small town Iowa. And the only place you can grab food is a gas station. And so your choices, instead of like some beef jerky or something like that, your choices are chips and donuts. And it's like, this is not just because it doesn't have meat in it doesn't mean it's better for you.
Right. Yeah. You can still make bad choices. And today and yesterday, you can make the bad choices without it needing to have meat in it at all.
That's here's some French fries. They're vegetarian. It's like, okay.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. How things been? You've been playing any gigs, man?
Yeah, we're in that. I think last time I told you, generally speaking, January, we kind of take the month off. February, we start ramping back up a little bit. We've been inserting new songs, starting to get them into rotation. March is like, okay, we're getting there. And then really April is where things are back to normal for us. April and May are usually pretty full. And then it is just June to September is every weekend, double headers, sometimes weekday shows. I mean, I was looking at I'm slowly releasing our summer schedule, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm looking at this little run in July that we have, or just the month of July, I think is like 12 shows.
Wow.
I mean,
I didn't realize you guys play. I mean, when we talk, and of course, we've had you on the show mostly through like leading into and through the winter. So, I wasn't aware. And I also know you tend to play larger shows. And so I made the assumption that you were playing less of them, but that's not the case, is it?
The goal a long time ago was to play less for more money. That was the mentality that we took on to say, no more bar gigs. We're gonna play bigger events. We're gonna make more money so that we can play less. And then what started happening was they're like, here's more money, but keep playing, play more. Here's more money, play more. And we're all in a point to where this was our 16-year anniversary of being a band this year. And
Congratulations.
yeah, and you know, from the start, we've always said any day now, this band will implode. People will hate us. They will not want to hear Taylor Swift songs anymore or whatever. And it hasn't happened yet. It just keeps going. The band keeps growing. But I think I can honestly say, if I'm trying to be realistic, there is an end date somewhere. It's not all things can last forever, especially now that our singer has 2 kids. I have a second one coming here this summer. Our bass player has one coming this summer. I can see a point where when these kids start getting into like the weekend activity stuff, that gets a little scary, right? Because I want to be there. I want to go to my kids' soccer tournament on a Saturday. But what happens if I have this gig in Omaha? Like last weekend, I left at noon on Friday. We played a private party in Des Moines, Iowa, 2 hours away. We stayed the night. Then the next morning, we drove 2 more hours further west to Omaha, played a nearly sold out club show in Omaha, a market that we've been trying to build, and had this beautiful weekend full of huge crowds and great money. But then I got home at like noon on Sunday. I was gone for 48 hours, you know, actually that's more than 48 hours, right? That's 72 hours.
Yeah.
And I was gone the whole weekend while my wife and daughter were having fun and going to the park and stuff. And it's like, you know, I can only imagine what will happen as she continues to get older. And so we're just right now, like to go back to your question, we're playing as much as we can at this point. 'Cause let's do it. Let's go for it. 'Cause it may not be around forever, you know?
That's a great attitude to have, and it's obviously a realistic one, knowing that your lives collectively, individually and collectively, are going to change, are going to evolve, and you're going to want to spend time. And like what you're talking about here is no different than like what touring bands go through. You know, where it's like, no, I want to be at home for my kid's soccer game. Because that phase, for most of us, that phase of our lives, speaking, you know, selfishly as the parents, that only happens once. And it also only happens for each of our kids only once too, right? I mean, that's just how that works. And as someone who has been through it, and I mean, anything could happen, I suppose, but I will be shocked if I wind up in that scenario again. But as somebody who's been through it, and who chose in the moment to prioritize that, like no regrets. I had a business that almost failed, like because of it. Like we got to a point, I've talked about this on Business Brain. We got to a point with one of the businesses where we had like, you know, 3 weeks of payroll left, and I didn't really know it. Because or I didn't see it coming is a better way of phrasing that. And it was because I was like, I had put the businesses on autopilot and was enjoying my time with my family. I was still like showing up at work, but it wasn't quite. And suddenly it was like, I'm going to need to refocus a little bit here because we need fuel for the family, and fuel comes as cash. And I screwed up a little bit, and it was fine. Like I wouldn't change a thing about it. I would do it exactly the same way again. So
and you never know when you might be like with your band one day, playing a gig or having a rehearsal, and then you never know when somebody might like quit the band, and the band might be over. The band could be completely over in a matter of seconds.
Without you know, me or you, or like through no choice of our own, through no fault of our own. Right. Yeah. It can just fall apart. Well, what Timothy B. Schmidt, I love to quote that Eagles documentary, his moment in it where he had just joined the band and it's like imploding around him. And the director or whatever asked him, like, so how does this feel? Like they're literally on the Eagles private plane flying to a gig somewhere. And he's like, how does this feel? You join this band and it's just falling apart. And he's like, typical bass player. He's like, every band is on the verge of breaking up at all times.
Yep.
And it's the guy was like, huh, okay. And he's totally right. Like, you don't know. It can happen.
And I go through, just like everybody, we all go through these mental ups and downs where we love playing music so much. That's why we do this. But like, the moments, and I absolutely hate the phrase, we play for free. You pay us for the lessons and the it's like, no, shut up with that. But
yeah.
for real,
no, you pay us for the entertainment value. That's
you
what
pay
we're
us to
being
play.
paid
Like
for.
don't dumb that down. We play for free. But the moment, like, I had it was a long weekend. It was like a lot of waiting around, hurry up and wait, and just and I was just kind of like whatever. But then the moment you get on stage, that is just like the best. Like, you're on such a high for even after the show for hours, and when you wake up the next morning. But we all have those moments where we're like, is this worth it? Like,
especially the pre-gig, like, there's the wait. Oh God, it's like, it can be fun for a little bit if it's the right amount of time. It's just awesome all the way through.
Yep.
But as soon as that wait, especially like for like bigger gigs like that, or wedding gigs, the same kind of thing, where, I talk to people in touring bands, some of them who relate the same kind of deal. It's like, oh yeah, the waiting around for the show to start. It's like,
that's when you question it. And I put way too much pressure on myself for making sure that, like, the show is going to be perfect and the set list is going to be perfect. And in fact, we were at this club in Omaha called the Slowdown. It's beautiful, like 700 cap. Great room. We've been trying to build that market for a while, and I think we finally have hit that point where, like, now everyone knows who we are, and the next time we come back, it's going to be sold out. But they had this new projector screen, because usually we have a LED video wall.
Okay.
All of our videos are synced. So for instance, if you're watching us play Britney Spears, Baby One More Time, like, the music video is perfectly synced to us playing along to it. But we don't always bring a video wall with us, especially when it's a certain club and it won't fit. But they had a new projector screen and a huge, like, top of the line projector. So we hooked up to it, and it was awesome, and it looked great. And like halfway through the third song, I noticed behind me that it switched over to, like, ads for the club.
Oh,
and I was like, what? And I knew they wouldn't have done that on purpose. So then, out of the corner of my eye, about 30 seconds later, I see the front of house tech coming over, and he's like, I don't know what's happening. And so in between songs, we were switching out cables and stuff where the crowd doesn't know what's going on. And finally, it's not working. Who cares? And he turned it off and and raised it. Yeah. And like in my head, I was pouting for like 4 or 5 songs, going, God, now he just ruined the show. This was our big chance in Omaha, and, like, to set ourselves apart. And now everybody's going to think that we're just some regular old band. And nobody cared.
Nope.
Nobody knew.
Nope.
Nobody realized that there was a problem.
The thing ruining the show was your attitude after the issue. Yes.
100%. And I know when I'm in those modes, and I pulled myself out, and it was fine. But like, man, those are the moments where you just go, dude, just stop and enjoy yourself. Nobody cares. Just have fun.
That's good advice. Yeah. I people who know me know that I have moments where I can be in, my Dave tantrum mode, where I'm like, pissed about whatever. It's like, it's just not going well. Like, screw it. Like, whatever. And it's like, nope. It's actually like, if you can, in those moments, trying to look at it objectively, like, get out of your own head. And it's like, yeah, like, it's all fine. And look what we still, even though this is not what I had previously defined as perfect, look what we still get to be doing right now. It's pretty cool. And I can either stay pissed and lose the opportunity to enjoy the remaining moments I have right here, or I can just enjoy it. Yeah.
But that's what happens to and I assume most of the people that are listening to this show are the types in their bands that care and that put in more work than most. That's why they're listening. And we're all that. I'm that, you're that. And that's what comes with the territory of caring so much, is that you can be let down if your work and your planning does not come to fruition. But I mean, I would give anything to just be the guy that's just like, oh, whatever, tell me what time to be there. Like, I would love to do that, but at the same time, that's just not who I am. And
there's no world. No.
Yeah. And I like having the control over that. I like I was telling you, I'm kind of in the position of thinking about, like, taking another career path, and people are like, well, what are you good at? And I'm like, well, I'm not your traditional marketing advertising guy, but I've taken anything that I've ever been handed over to me. They're like, hey, here's a really good product. Make it the most well-known awesome thing in your area. I'm like, okay. And I just do that.
And you do that. Yeah.
Because I don't know what skill that is or what job that is, but like I take so much pride in taking something that I care about and being like, everyone needs to know about this because it's so good.
You should start a PR firm, or could. I don't like. Right? I don't like the word should. You could start a PR firm.
Yeah.
Like that would be one way to sort of package and leverage all of those skills in a way that's interpretable by a market, right? Like, what are you going to do for me? I'm going to take your product and promote it, and that. So, like, that's what a PR firm. One of the things PR
exactly.
Firm does.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was a good weekend. We had some bad storms come through to the point where we started our first song on Friday night, finished it. Middle of the second song, it was in a hotel ballroom. Guy comes walking up. No, stop. We're like, okay, what? So we stopped, and the tornado sirens, there was a tornado warning. There was a tornado like 2 miles away from us or something like that. So the whole entire private party had to go down into the basement of the hotel, and so we hung out there for about 30 minutes, and we're thinking sweet, because we have to be over at this time no matter what. So we just cut about 6-7 songs from our
Clock's
set.
Still ticking.
Yes, it is. And I told the person throwing the party, it was a birthday party. They're like, "Oh, we're so sorry." We're like, "Dude, this is memorable. This is, as I'll never forget, having your party have to go to the basement during a tornado warning. Nobody was hurt. We're good.
Brilliant.
Move on. Yeah.
Yep. Good to go. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Yeah. It happens. And it becomes a story for us here. So, there you go.
Yep. Were you gigging over the weekend?
It's interesting. I have not I've played a couple of acoustic gigs here and there, but I am currently in Tech Week. Actually, by the time this episode comes out, we'll have just finished Tech Week for a musical that I'm doing, Spring Awakening. Loading my drums into the theater for essentially this Tech Week is the first time I've put my drum set in my car since New Year's Eve. Like I said, I played some acoustic gigs where I've brought like a cajon or something. Yep. Yeah, and I think I played one gig on drums where the venue had drums, like, so, but it was still like, that's a long period of time for me to go, almost 4 months without putting my drums in my car. But I had a lot of travel unrelated to music, mostly throughout, work stuff and a little bit of personal travel, but mostly work stuff, January through March. And then with Bitter Pill, we've been rehearsing like crazy, getting ready for a bunch of summer gigs, learning a bunch of new songs that the band has written. Billy and Emily and John, actually our guitar player, has a bunch of new songs that he's brought to the band too. And so I've been playing often, but this week was the first time that I've been, really kind of like back in, well, it's still a rehearsal thing, but we'll open the show. It'll happen, and playing gigs, and it's been good. The band's on stage for this particular musical. It's I think I mentioned Spring Awakening, and I generally. I don't like doing musicals where I'm off stage. Where the pit is like hidden, and it's the separation from the singers and actors that's really weird for me. I call it solving math problems on the drums in a closet, because that's what it is. You just show up, I put on headphones, somebody counts me in, I read the chart, I play the thing. And hopefully it's complex enough to keep like my attention, and then it's like, all right, you're done. Cool. You hear like in another room, a crowd applauding, and you take off your headphones, put your sticks down, go to my car and walk out with the people that were just at the show, and they have no idea. Nope. Right. And it's like, they're talking about the show, and it's like, oh, interesting, and then I go to my car and I drive home. And it's fine. Like, that is a time-tested...
That drummer sucked.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Hey, buddy, did you hear that drummer?
Did you hear that? God, it was awful. But it's just a weird thing, performing with people that I can't see. It's like, don't get me wrong. Of course, it's nice to experience the energy of the crowd too, like that for sure. But it's just weird playing with like a singer that we can't lock eyes if things go a little sideways. Where I noticed it years ago is when I can't see their feet when they're dancing, It's super weird for me. Or if I can, it's on a video screen and there's a delay.
Yep. Nope.
Oh, nope. Don't look at that screen. Nope. Close your eyes for that. So this one, the band's on stage, and we have been, in rehearsals trying to, get the balance right. And it's weird because these days it's everybody's ampless, right? All the guitars, the keys, bass are all going direct. And so that sound in this theater, it's bizarre to me, but maybe this is normal for theater. The sound that the actors hear from the drums is coming from on stage, because guess what? That's where my drums are.
Yeah.
And that's where I am, and I'm hitting them. But the sound of like the keys and the guitars are coming from speakers in the ceiling, 20 something feet up. And it's gotta be bizarre for them. I took my ears out at one point during rehearsals just to get a sense of like, am I hitting too hard? Like just blending. And it's like, I can't do this. Like the sound is coming from so far away that I'm hearing it on a delay. I mean, that speaker's 25 feet from me. That's 25 milliseconds, essentially. It was like, whoop, nope, put an ear back in. Like, can't do this. So it's weird. And so we've been working on getting the blend right and working. And the way this theater is, my perception of what my drums sound like in the house is wrong. Like,
of course.
Like to the point where I will pick a snare drum that sounds good on stage, and then I have, somebody play it where I, can go hear it in the house. It sounds completely different in the house.
Just trust it. Just play it the way you're going to play it and just trust that it's right.
Well, and I need to pick different drums for this theater, not based on what I know it's going to sound like in the room, not what it sounds like to me. And for this one, I'm actually muffling a snare drum. We're still in the rehearsal process. I'm trying to figure out exactly the right way to do it. Last night, I put gaff taped a towel to half of the head, and that was good. But I'm thinking about bringing tonight do you know the BFSD, the big fat snare drum?
Big Fat Five, yeah. But my buddy runs that podcast. He's the drummer for Eve 6, and he is the drummer for a band called Cannons, and he kind of represents their company. They have a podcast. It's mostly for drummers called Big Fat Five, and he gets good drummers in, and they talk about their like 5 influential records. But after talking to him, I ordered a pack of that, and my snare drum permanently has that on it. It's my sound. It's sort of my signature, just whack. And nothing.
And it's dead. So for people who don't know, the big fat snare drum, there's a couple of models of it, but it's essentially a perfectly sized, 14-inch or 13-inch piece of mylar, I would assume, like another drum head that you're literally laying on top of your snare, and it's got a muffle ring on it. And then there's another one that's there's one that covers the whole head, and then another one that leaves sort of a center dot of the snare drum open. I forget what they call that one. That's the Steve's donut.
That's
right.
the one. That's the one that's on my snare permanently, and it's just I've even tried to take it off and then retune and be like, maybe I want, and it's just like, that's my sound. That is what our sound guy is used to. That is what the band is used to. And so, I really love those things. If you're experimenting with trying to deaden it up, make it a lot more just whack and done. Even for toms, they make them for toms. It's a pretty good product.
I haven't tried them on toms. I have used them on snare drums before. I just didn't happen to have one in the theater yesterday when it was like, wait, the simplest answer might be to muffle the crap out of this snare drum. And
so you just ordered one then?
No, I have one here at home. I just got to bring it to the theater with me tonight, and we'll try that out. But it can make a huge difference in the really deadening the sound. This is such a live room that I'm in that it'll still sound like a snare drum by the time it hits people's ears. It's totally fine, and it gives the front of house engineer something to work with.
Yep.
So
when you bring up, I don't know why I just thought of that. You were talking about ampless, and we've been dealing with this a lot where, I mean, I've gone on record saying that if you're a guitar player or a drummer who says that no matter what gig it is, no matter where we're playing, no matter how big the stage is and the crowd is, I bring my giant amp or my giant 18-piece drum set and I play it because that's who I am, and I will not adapt for anyone. I think you're a detriment to your band, and I think you're a detriment to the overall goal of what your band is trying to achieve. And I'll be the first to admit that, like, I absolutely hate playing electronic drum sets. I hate it. I can't stand the feel of it. I can't stand the sound of it. But I bought, we ran into, this is where it finally switched over to me, to where I'm like, okay, I've got to make some adjustments for the betterment of the band. We played at the Field of Dreams, which is in Iowa. You know, everybody's seen the movie. They've been doing this Major League Baseball game.
Well, they built it, and so you went.
And so we went. And we played in the private VIP tent for the Cincinnati Reds pre-show. This is a couple summers ago. So all their Hall of Fame people are there, their owners, they're there, and they just want a band. And we knew exactly what we were, just background entertainment, but we could not. They kept saying, "Hey, could you just turn down a little bit more?" And we can't, because of the sound. I'm a hard-hitting drummer. Yeah. I'm a very hard-hitting drummer. I've been playing this way my whole life. And when I start to do I'm not going to hit as hard, I don't play very well. And I do not keep a consistent, I'll fall behind on the click to where bass players like, come on. Cause this is my style. Like my arm does this and it hits the drum at the right interval. So we couldn't lower the volume because that's how loud my drums were. And I knew at that moment that for these type of gigs, these small rooms, these small weddings, like, I have to be the one that adapts. And so I bought one of those Roland VAD kits because no way I'm quitting music before I play an electronic kit that doesn't look like drums. Like, I'll just quit the band.
Sure.
I'm just not going to do that, because it is about look, and it is about rock and roll.
Live music is a visual art. Yes. Absolutely. Yes.
So these Roland drums, they're wood shells. They look exactly like drums. I bought a drum head that says the Pork Tornadoes on the front of it. No one knows. I still hate the way they sound, but I've played them. They're the best that you're going to get. Yes. Especially if you want the visual aspect of it. So we have this adaptability where it depends on the room. Sometimes I will bring that entire kit, and that is what it is. And sometimes I will just bring the electronic cymbals to put onto my acoustic kit, because cymbals are where we run into the most problems with vocal mics, especially if we're in a very tight space. But I can't recommend enough. And here's the cool part, that once I started doing this, my bass player and my guitar player have done the same thing. They have giant, my guitar player has, I don't even know the terminology. They're Diesel amps. They're very expensive, very nice. And he has 6 of them, big tall wall of, because he can. We play these giant shows and it looks cool as hell. But they're all direct as well. They all have modelers, a bass player and guitar player, that if they don't need to use their amps, it's fine. And they've all learned to adapt to say, well, this venue, we cannot bring your giant amps, even as cool as it looks. And they say, okay. And I think that's a very important thing for people to note out there, that you have to do, even though I hate playing these electronic drum kits, I will do it because of the betterment of our overall product and our overall band, to make us sound better, to make us be better for the party that we were hired to play. And I just think people should consider that more often when they are in these bands.
I think I agree with you. I don't have an electronic kit. I don't play in a scenario where there's enough money on the table to justify me investing in one of these. Right? Like, that's really where it's come from. Because I wouldn't, like you, I would not choose to play it most of the time. It's not like I would just go get one and this would be my gigging kit 100% of the time and it'd be great. If that were the case, I could easily justify the cost. But I wouldn't. I like the feel and sound of playing real cymbals and real drums. But I agree with you. There are times where when I show, because I don't have an electronic kit, when I show up with real cymbals and real drums, I have to really like work. And one of the things, I haven't talked about this on the show. I haven't talked about this to anyone. But one of the things,
insert ad right now.
Right. That's right. One of the things that I have been working on throughout the last like 4 months where I haven't been playing live, but I've been doing a lot of rehearsing, is really changing the way that I play to make less volume out of the drums while still making them sound good.
Yep.
And feel good for me to play. And it's taken a lot. It's like every rehearsal that I do, you know, we'll play the first song and be like, okay, right. That was your old default. Now think about it. And I've learned to loosen my my wrists and sort of play with softer hands is the term that I think of in my head. I mean, there's drummers out there that, obviously inspire me in general, but the two guys that really, I think epitomize this are Steve Gadd and Keith Carlock. Keith Carlock's, I mean, he's played with a bunch of people, but for the last, 15 years, he's been on the road with Steely Dan.
Okay. Yeah.
And if you watch that guy play, if you go see Steely Dan, it doesn't matter whether you're a drummer or even a musician, you will walk out of that show saying, the drummer stole the show. He is super animated, clearly works his butt off playing these songs. And these are not easy songs.
Oh, yeah.
And like crushes it. He's awesome. And you would think that he was hitting his drums so freaking hard because of the
visual of it,
the visual exertion, and even the motion of his sticks. Like economy of motion is not his thing, right?
Neither.
Like John Fishman from Phish. That guy also plays with a very, very controlled volume, but you can tell like he is all about economy of motion, and he's great with it. Like it's fine. Like but Carlock. Like he's more that Freddie Gruber kind of method of which most people wouldn't know unless you're like a super nerdy drummer. But with like circular motion is his thing. It's just all about playing with circles with your hands, and he's that guy. But he's just glancing his sticks off the drums and off the cymbals, and he gets a great sound out of them. And you can go see him in a small club, and he's still making these huge motions, and it's not coming. So that has been part of this for me, and I think it's helping quite a bit, especially kind of putting things in this theater. It's like, all right, now I see that room. Snare drums are just not nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It would arguably be best in that room to set up acoustic drums with a triggered snare, with like you know what I mean? Because that, like, for whatever reason, snare drums in this particular theater are a disaster, but other things are totally fine. But and I've also found putting a little bit of moon gel on my ride cymbal.
Oh, really?
Makes a huge difference. Really? Yes. I put it maybe not obviously. I put it 180 degrees across from where I would hit it, because I don't want to accidentally start hitting a pad. Moon gel, for people who aren't drummers, is just like a little piece of
you've seen discarded moon gels on the stage of every stage you've played at.
You found them on the bottom of your shoes. Yeah, exactly. Yep. I've heard people buy like those little gummy, not gummy worms, but the little
hand
meshy
like the string hand thing.
And use those on their drums, and you can buy those for you pay $4 and you get like 500 of them or something. It's way cheaper than
like a gumball machine at a Walmart or something.
Yeah, or even like in the lobby of the club, where if you need some extra moon gel, just go pull one of those out of the thing. But so I've been working on playing a lot softer, and I don't just mean volume wise softer, just softer hands, and it's made a huge. I have felt the difference. I don't know if people who play with me, because I haven't asked anybody about it.
I need to a little more consciously do that. But the problem for us is we're just so all over the place. We'll go from a 10,000 person outdoor festival giant stage where we can just do whatever we want, to the following day we'll be in a 20 by 40 metal room with 50 people there for a private party, but the thing is, you can play with softer hands at the big gig and let your front of house guy drive it. Once you get used to it, it doesn't feel different. You know what? You can still get that rock out enjoyment from it. I'm just going to have to figure it out.
You just got to adapt it. Yeah.
That is also the problem I run into, is that then when I play these electronic kits, I'm still playing them like real drums, which is the worst thing you could do, because I had in the middle of the last song, the last time I used my kit, my kick drum just went, nope, it doesn't work anymore.
Yes.
Like something electronically goes, you've been hitting me too hard. We're not gonna play anymore. So middle of the last song, we're like, there's no kick drum. Awesome. You know, so I don't like that aspect of it, but I do challenge anybody to know that you got to adapt to the room you're playing in for the noise you're doing.
And I coach guitar players for the same thing is, sure, get your sounds at home, get your whatever, all your different tones. You get your clean, your distorted. I'm not a guitar player, but I have found the guitar players who are most effective with their sound on stage have like 3 or 4 sounds maximum.
Yeah, totally.
You got clean, you got dirty, you got a boost,
really dirty, and a boost,
and then really dirty. Right, that's it. And then stop right there. And
actually, you're right. That's what our guy has. That's
it. That's what it takes. That's what most of the pros have, because they understand that their sound needs to blend not just with the other bandmates, but that's super important. And especially if you got 2 guitar players, a guitar and keys, you need to talk about who's going to own what sections of the EQ range. Like, these are conversations I really encourage you to have with your band, and think about it and record it with like just room mics and listen and make sure that you're avoiding any mud that you can sort of carve out of your band's overall EQ. And if you got a keyboard player and a bass player, well, the keyboard player probably needs to roll off that low end or use it very judiciously so that you're not having mud there. And the keyboard player and the guitar players need to negotiate that and have different things. But then, like, figure that out before you leave the rehearsal room. Figure out your own sounds before you get to the rehearsal room. Then figure that out together there. And then when you get on stage, figure it out again. Know what to tweak and tune, especially if you're running from your modeler into an amp, which I know a lot of people still do. Like, not everybody's running ampless stages, and that's fine. If you are running ampless stages, then your front of house engineer hopefully can sort of negotiate that for you. But if not, then listen to how your instrument sounds in the room. Take your ears out, listen, and adjust it again. Hopefully all you need to do is maybe some quick little adjustments on a graphic EQ that's sort of global to your whole rig, and then you're done. But, notice that, does this room have a lot of like 500 hertz that's, bubbling up? Well, dump it, man.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't care if that's part of your sound in your bedroom. This ain't your bedroom. This is your sound for today.
Yeah.
Think about it again. And just like I'm doing with my snare drum in the theater, it's exactly the same thing.
Yes.
Think about it in the venue for that particular gig, and don't worry about what works at home. It's in fact, what you figured out what works at home is great.
So that's the way.
I think it's the way. And bands that figure this out are the ones that wind up getting more gigs. Because it's not. It is about entertaining people and sounding good. But most people in the crowd can't tell you what the problem with your sound is. They can just tell you it's bad.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't really hear the vocals. Well, okay. That's there's a whole, that's the tip of the iceberg right there.
Yep. We got a lot of underlying problems if that's what's going on.
Yep. But there's a lot of underlying problems. Yeah. It's not just one thing. It's not turn up the vocals,
It's the drummer with a 14-piece kit and 37 cymbals taking up all the room on the stage. That is maybe your problem.
When you guys play, do you have you ever like used or routinely used plexi shields in any way with your kit?
Yeah, and this fits right into the conversation, right? We used to carry around a gigantic glass case of emotion shield where it's 6 feet tall and it goes around the whole kit, because there are those small rooms where
that's what
drums
you mean.
Are too loud, and we used to travel around with that way back in the day. I mean, 12, 13 years ago. And I traditionally hated it. I hated being behind it. I didn't like the way it made me feel of just being.
Yeah, you're in the bubble. It sucks.
It sucks. And then
your bandmates probably didn't like it much either.
No, not at all. Because the sound's just different. But 10 years ago or so, we ditched those and we just went to just the cymbal shields. I use Smokin Aces. They're the rectangular looking ones. They perfectly go around the cymbal. And I've been using that, and I've been a proponent for that for years. I know people hate it, and I know people are like, well, no, we don't need to use these. It is a night and day difference when these shields are up versus when they're not, versus what kind of cymbal wash is bleeding into vocal mics. Our sound guy is just like, thank you for being cool about this. I mean, because like he's like, it helps. Even the band members are like, dude, thank you for using those, because I think as a drummer, you it's your responsibility to keep the cymbals out of everyone's vocal microphones. You know,
it's
really
better
think
when that's the case. Yep, for sure.
So I've been using those I travel with them. They go up every single time. If you look at any picture of us over the last decade, they're up and they're ready to roll.
How difficult are these to like pack and travel with? And like, for somebody who's just throwing their drums in their car for every gig, what does this add? Do you need extra stands? Are you able to clamp them onto your existing cymbal stands? How much room do they take in the car? Like I want to know, and I know we have listeners who want to know.
Yeah. So first of all, that company is also a case maker. Which is awesome, right? So, So me being the guy, I'm the guy that always buys middle of the road the first time around, and then everything breaks, and then I'm like, oh, I should have bought the nicer version, and then I buy the nice version. But I did not buy a case right off the bat. I'm like, oh, they'll just float around in the trailer, and of course they all broke within a day. So these things need to be put into a case, and they have a customized case that fits perfect. They all go in there, they get belted down. It looks like a pedal board case, so it's really not taking up much space.
Okay, that's good to know. All right,
and the arms that I bought to go with it, they're just cymbal boom arms. Essentially, is how those attach. Okay, and they're just permanently attached to my two stands.
So you're not having extra stands to do this. You've just got essentially it's like mounting extra cymbals.
It is. It's like putting you pull the stands down, extend them, put them to where they need to go. Shields go on, tighten them on. You're done. So it's really does not take much more time, and I just think it's an important thing for every drummer. It's kind of like the guitar guy that brings his little shield to kind of package in his amp a little bit. Like that's responsible of you to say I know this is going to be loud, so I'm going to try to do my best to keep it out of your guys' space.
Nice. All right. Yeah, I gotta dig into that. I gotta learn more about these.
There's some great companies. For some reason, I don't know what it is visually about the circular ones.
The round ones? Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but like visually that bothers me for some reason. Okay. Maybe it's just because I'm not used to it, but I like these Smokin Aces because they angle. It's like a couple different sides of a rectangle, and I don't know, I just like that better. See how that kind of goes around the cymbal?
Yeah, for those of you who are watching the video, I've got it there, but there's a link in the show notes. You'll see it. But yeah, it almost looks like a mini, like full drum set shield in terms of the way the rectangles sort of fit together. But that's great. Yeah.
You guys are like great guy too. He's from Jefferson City, Missouri, I think. Really awesome, very responsive if you have questions. A great company.
Cool. All right, that's good to. I got to dig into this because that would be. That's sort of the next thing I've been thinking about getting. Just because, even if the drums themselves aren't too loud in the room, it's the proximity to the vocal mics.
That's all it is.
It is really the trick. Yeah, exactly.
And they just go right into those vocal. And our singers all have these like Neumann vocal mics, like top of the line. And so that it's great for them to make their vocals sound even better, but it's terrible when you're getting other noises going into them. So
think about that, singers, when you're buying a vocal mic, like how close is that microphone going to be to other instruments, and even more importantly, what percentage of the time that your band is playing on stage will you be standing directly in front of that mic, providing what I like to call a variable low-pass filter with your head, right? Because if your head and body aren't there, now they're aimed most likely, if you're down center, man, straight at the drums, right? Exactly. And is that what you want? And maybe a condenser mic isn't the best thing to have on your stage, even though you might like it for your vocals. Look for a microphone that's built to be on a stage. The dynamic stuff, I don't prefer them for my voice, but the Telefunken M80 series, they're great mics for that specifically. The the Heil PR30-ish series. I really like the PR37 on stage for exactly that reason. It feels like a condenser mic to the singer in me, and feels like a dynamic mic to the sound engineer in me. So like that, those are, I will put links to all those in the show notes too. So yeah.
Definitely.
While we're in Gear Gab, Mike, we got some feedback for us.
Nice.
Believe it or not. Yeah,
I'm
I know.
talking Gear Gab.
I know. Andy wrote in and he says, I know you're a gearhead and a drummer, and I thought I might share a recent gear solution I came up with to a nagging issue I had. He says, I gig a lot, 84 last year, and was frustrated with the mic cable time and management for setup at a gig. Absolutely. Yep.
I'm shaking my head.
Yep, we all are. Yep. He says, I was inspired by you and Mike Schulte and Mike's discussion of the CAT-SASS cable system. But after looking into that, Andy continues, I decided that it was too expensive for me and I didn't need the cable distance that Mike said he does. So I ended up with a custom snake from Pro Audio LA. And he actually posted this on Drummers World, where he ordered a custom-made 25-foot snake with 10 cables, and it covers everything. He uses that's connected to the mixer in both directions. All the mic lines, plus returns for not just his in-ear monitor, but he has a butt kicker, so he needs a separate return for that. So 5 drum mics, 2 overhead mics, a trigger sample pad line, and then a return IEM and a return submix, all in one cable. 10 of the 25 feet, and again, this is, the nice part about doing this with a pro, like a custom solution, and Pro Audio LA will do this. 10 of the 25 feet is taken up by 2 feet of cattails at the mixer end, and then the other 8 feet taken up with split tails at the drum end. And he says 8 feet at the drum end was just enough to get around all the mics of the kit. And he says there's 15 feet of cable length sort of in the middle to go from wherever his kit is to wherever the mixer is. And he says that's enough for like 95% of the gigs that they do. So there you go. He said the folks at Pro Audio LA didn't recommend going longer than 6 feet for the split tails, and he went 8. And he says, I now understand why, because it turns into a rat's nest. It becomes very rat's nestian, as some like to say. But he said he just creatively used zip ties to split the cable first into 2 sections of mic lines, one going from his throne to the right side of the kit, one going to the left side of the kit, and then 4 sort of more loosely applied zip ties that can slide up and down the 2 split groupings to keep them tidy when necessary, and then loosen it up when it's at the kit and he needs to spread the mics around. And he says he loves it. His sound engineer loves it. Keeps things cleaner on stage, but also makes setup time and breakdown time, which might even be more important, way better. So yeah.
So interestingly enough, I'll explain to you what I use. If you didn't listen to that last episode, all of our band members use that CAT-SASS system.
Yeah.
Which allows them to just run very long, heavy duty EtherCon cables from their pedal boards to our IEM rack. So we're running one line instead of multiple lines. And again, the whole time management of cables and yeah. So I ordered one which only goes from, so I have a rack on stage that contains, it contains a TC Helicon vocal processor that I use for things that I do with my rapping and stuff.
Yep.
And then it also contains my wireless mic. Would that be a receiver? Transmitter, receiver,
transmitter.
Whatever.
If it's a wireless mic, it's transmitting. Yeah.
It's got my wireless mic transmitter in there, and then it has our
it's got the
interface.
Receiver for the wireless mic.
Sorry,
You're
receiver.
right. No, you're right.
Yep.
Yeah, I get it now. Yep.
And then it has our interface, which we use for Ableton and tracks and everything. So that lives right next to me. My computer goes into the into the interface, and then it splits out into multiple channels. Right now we're using 4 channels where there's a left and a right for the backing tracks. Then there's 1 channel for clicks, 1 channel for cues. So instead of running 4 cables out of that, the back of that, I just use the CAT-SASS to go to the IEM rack. But interestingly enough, I have a Pro Audio LA Loom that I made like 8 years ago, exactly what he is talking about, that I use for the rest of my drums. The problem being is that since I made that, I've made alterations to my kit. I've added a kick in, so I have a kick out and a kick in. The loom only has a kick out.
Yeah, it's got one channel for the kick.
So then I've got to run another XLR for that, and then I've added 2 overheads. I've got to run 2 more XLRs for that. So in the interest of my drum tech's time, I considered going CAT-SASS for everything.
Yeah.
But instead, I actually have one being shipped today from Pro Audio LA. I designed a brand new one that has all the stuff I need. It's got different lengths for different things. I actually made at the end of the female end, I made it go into 3 different tails that then had ends on the end of those so that it could be strategically placed around the drum set.
Sure.
I've got a return IEM, like the opposite, where it comes back from our IEM rack to give me my in-ear audio mix. So he's absolutely right. Like, as a drummer, I think CAT-SASS is maybe too expensive for the entire kit and a bit of an overkill. These custom looms are like everything you would ever want, especially if you're like us, where we bring our own. I bring my own mics, I bring my own cables, I bring my own stands. We are completely self-contained.
Yeah, right.
So that every time it is the exact same. No one touches it other than me and my drum tech. We know exactly how everything works. And I mean, no doubt, what is that, 16 XLR cables? Like, think of how long that takes to wrap up all those over the course of a year. You know, when you can just take that one loom and just all done.
Roll it up and you're done. So what did yours cost you? Just so to level set for everybody here.
Yeah, so 16 channels, 25 feet long, some custom modifications on the end of them.
Sure.
I believe it was like $1,200, $1,100.
Okay.
And you think about it, you're like, geez, you know, that's. But keep in mind, these are very, very high quality cables. So add the cost of those cables up, and there's a lifetime warranty on it. So, and just to put it into perspective, I bought that original loom 8 years ago, and not one cable has gone out in that loom in 8 years. Think of how many cables you've replaced over the years of XLRs, and not one of them has gone out.
You know,
so,
I haven't. I occasionally have to resolder an end. Yeah. But I have a way of rolling cables that drives every trained sound tech absolutely bonkers. I learned this method. My kids weren't born yet, so it must have been 30 years ago.
What is your method?
I learned it from a guy, and I still have the cables that I was using back then. What I do is I fold them like sheets.
No, and then do you tie them together in the middle?
And then I tie it in a knot. Yep, I go end to end. So I take both ends of a cable, 2 ends, and then I stretch it out, and then now there's another end, and you put that end together, and I keep doing that just like you would fold sheets until there's just enough left to tie in one knot, one big sort of loose knot. And there's 2 great parts about this. Number 1, the cables last forever. Number 2 is when you take those cables and you throw them in buckets like most bands have, you can grab them out of those buckets a week later at the next gig, or a night later at the next gig.
10 years later.
It is not rat's nestian anymore. It's like everything's right like you need it. You unroll it. And sure, you can do the same thing with the over-under proper technique of rolling cables. There's 2 problems I have with that. Number 1, trying to teach people that technique is impossible, and getting them to adhere to it, because they have to do it perfectly. Otherwise they have to start over. And at 2 a.m, no. And then you've got to have little cable ties. And where are the cable ties? I lost that. Like, the Velcro's got like beer on it now. Oh, that sucks. So this way is the best. And everyone who disagrees with me is wrong.
Yeah, I used to make fun of them because I come from I took a bunch of recording studio classes in college. I worked in a recording studio, some very old school people in the recording industry. So it was like over under. Yeah, you must do this. This is the way. And so I've been trained that way my whole life. And then when my singer and bass player started doing the exact method you're talking about, I was like, you guys, you don't know what you're talking about. And to hear you say that, I'm like, all right, fine. Like I can, and I did it for a while because it was their stuff, so I would coil it up the way they wanted. And you're like, yeah, this is actually kind of easy. It does actually work pretty good.
It's hard for a lot of us to admit that it's better. We know that it's better long before we admit it. And that I definitely went through the same thing. It was just like 30 years ago because that when I was taught, my friend Ron Marks showed me. I'm like, no. And he's like, okay. he's like, here's the thing. Give it like 3 months and you'll see. You'll be packing up at a gig and you will start using this method because it's better. And he was right.
He was right. Yeah.
Yep.
And you know what? That is part of living a fulfilling life, and being a good musician is being willing to take new advice.
Yes.
Because the way you do it is not necessarily the best way, even though you think it is.
It's a fine way.
Yes. Right. It's a fine way, but be open to people that say, hey, you know what? You really need to use a modeler for these next couple runs of shows. You can't bring your amp. And I know that doesn't feel right. Same thing. You need to start using cymbal shields. But it looks dumb. But we need you to do it. And same thing, coiling the cable correctly. Like, I know you've known it this way, but try it this way.
There's also another way.
Try it this way. See what you think.
And really, just to be clear, there's nothing functionally wrong with the over-under method. Like it's time-tested. It works. The cables also last a very long time. It's just not efficient is the reality of it. Yeah.
To circle back on that, my drum tech is over the moon with the idea of what I'm trying to help condense his time into with this new loom. So look, Pro Audio LA, they're a great company. You guys will love it if you're looking for some custom snake options.
That's great. I have one more piece of Gig Gab that I want to share because I've been super excited about this thing since I got it. It is the Stage Ninja. It's the Mic 12 CB. I'll put a link in the show notes, of course. It's a microphone clamp. The Stage Ninja people make these clamps make these like scorpion arms that when you move it, it stays where you put it. And this one has a clamp on one end. You could put it on a drum stand. I've put it on guitar amps, and then it's got a mic, a thread for a mic clamp or a mic clip at the other end. You can put any mic, that you want on there. And the nice part, I've used it. It's always a pain in the neck getting guitar microphones to stay on a guitar cabinet throughout a gig, right? You put a floor stand on, it gets kicked, it gets swiveled, it gets moved. This thing, I just clamp it onto the edge of the amp and then position the mic any way I want, and it stays there all freaking night. It's awesome.
Those things are great. I have one of those for a GoPro mount from a long time ago. The exact same idea behind that. And I mounted it to like a boat in the Caribbean that was going 70 miles an hour, and it didn't move.
Doesn't
it just
move.
Stayed right there.
It just I've used a Stage Ninja clamp for my iPad for years, and I clamp it to my hi-hat stand, so it's just off, just to the left of my left leg. I'm a right-handed drummer, and I play right-handed. And it's great for, if I need to use an iPad to like mix my ears or even like I didn't have room in where my kit's set up for this theater show for our first rehearsal. I couldn't have a music stand. I still can't have a music stand. I have since bought like a freestanding iPad only stand so that it fits in. But for the first rehearsal, it was like, I didn't own one of those. And it was like, well, what am I going to do? It's like, well, I'll clamp it on. Reading music for an entire show looking to the left of my left leg, looking down, my back suffered for that.
Oh, yeah.
But it worked. I mean, I got through the rehearsal, so like all good. But then it was like, no, I need this to come up higher. So I just got a little iPad kind of stand, which is fine. Yeah.
That's great.
I probably need a better iPad stand. Probably should look and see if Stage Ninja has like one for me, but I bought one for like $12 or something. Thankfully, it's sort of packed in where it couldn't fall over even if it wanted to, because this cheap one that I bought probably wants to fall over.
Right.
But that's not a Stage Ninja one. So yeah. It's good stuff.
Nice, man.
Yeah.
Well, I got nothing else.
Same. Actually, I do have other things, but we'll just have to save them for the next time because that's what we do. That's what we do. Yeah. Feedback at giggabpodcast.com, folks. I would love to get your email. We've actually got a few more emails that we'll incorporate into upcoming episodes, and I loved that Andy had something for you and me here today.
The minute you said Pro Audio, I was like, yeah.
Right. There are the right companies to buy things from when it's different. when you're buying stuff just to use in my home studio,
Yep.
I have a set of Pile drum microphones. I think we talked about that I bought for $99 on Amazon because I had to know that they were crap.
Yeah.
The microphones are not crap. The mounts for them are.
Yes, yes.
They're one-time use.
That's not good.
If I were to take them off, they wouldn't go back on. So terrible for gigging, but like for
Home
miking,
studio?
it's totally fine, right? But you know, for the stuff that we're using on stage, and especially it's the the setup and tear down where you're moving quickly and you can't always take the care and time that we quote unquote should with our gear, that you need stuff that's built to be beat on a little bit.
Yep.
So
Totally, man.
Yep. All right. Thanks for hanging out, Mike. This was great, man.
Yeah. Always a pleasure.
Yeah.
Good to chat with you.
Yeah, it's fun. You got a few words of advice to share with everybody who's listening?
I believe it's always be performing.
Performing. Not preforming.
Preforming.
Preform.
Do not preform.
Do not preform. That's right. We'll see you next week, folks. Thanks. Thanks, Mike. Later. Sweet. And we're out.
Yeah, man, that was a fun one.